Coming up next, from Prince George's Community College to Harvard Law School, acclaimed attorney Adrian Gardner shares his inspiring educational and professional journey on this edition of Conversations with Charlene Dukes.
Welcome, I'm Charlene Dukes, president of Prince George's Community College. Thanks for joining us today. I'm excited about today's program because my guest is not only a successful attorney, he's also a former student of Prince George's Community College. Adrian Gardner, General Counsel of the Maryland National Capital Park and Planning Commission. Welcome to the program. It's a pleasure to meet you, and I'm excited for you and for our listeners as you share your story. So tell me, I understand that you're a Prince George's County native.
President Dukes, first of all, I'm so pleased to come home. And yes, I am. I grew up in the Glenarden area of Prince George's County in a little section called Ardmore, and used to walk around here when it was mostly still woods. So yes.
That's wonderful to know. So you grew up in Ardmore.
Yep.
So tell me, what was your community and your family life like?
You know, Ardmore was just such an incredible community to grow up in. And, you know, I think about even the people on my street. You know, people make jokes about the idea, well, it's not rocket science. But in fact, in my neighborhood, 2 streets over, Bill Reeves, you know, a rocket scientist at NASA, veterinarians, doctors. And, you know, we had our challenges as well. But the truth is that that community produced people of so much acclaim. It was a wonderful place to grow up. It really was.
That's wonderful to hear. And I also know that you graduated from Eleanor Roosevelt High School. So what kind of student were you in high school?
Oh, I graduated from Roosevelt by the skin of my teeth. Roosevelt, it wasn't that it wasn't a valuable and a great experience for me. It just wasn't academically. I was not ready. I was not ready to kick it up a notch, and I really didn't become ready until I started after graduating in '79 and started here in the fall of '79. So it was sort of a night and day thing for me. So that's the answer to that question.
Well, so you left Eleanor Roosevelt High School. You came to Prince George's Community College. And
Yes.
What was that like for you?
It was really, I would say the main thing, and this is about any college, but here as well, I felt it was a launch pad for me. And I think the thing that made the difference, a huge difference for me, was for the first time in my life, I actually had control over what I was going to be studying. Made all the difference in the world, even things like English composition. I remember my professor, her name was Kate Lidfors, and I remember that she actually didn't get sort of put out of place when I would write something that was a little bit offbeat or whatever, and that made a huge difference. But the point is that being in an environment where you had really talented people teaching you things that you actually care about just makes a huge difference, just makes a huge difference.
And so we were a launch pad for you, and you left us and went to Northeastern University.
Yes, because I did not have any reason to believe that I would actually get into Northeastern, which is why it was important to come to a community college first so that I didn't waste any time. Every single one of my credits transferred, and I was lucky enough to get into Northeastern, and that became the place where I stayed through Northeastern has a very, very strong and well-developed co-op program, which made a huge difference for me as well, because I had never worked, inside a building in an office environment before, and so that's one of the things that Northeastern taught me.
And it's my understanding that that cooperative education experience was with the Drug Enforcement Agency?
It was. I worked for the DEA for a total of a year, first in the Washington headquarters, and then later in supporting a group of field agents in Boston for about a half a year as well. And also spent about a half a year, even before then, with the Customs Service that was at headquarters in Washington, D.C. So yeah, it just opened so many doors for me.
So as you think about the work that you did and understanding that you were working for the DEA and even the Customs Service, maybe you could tell us a little bit about what kind of responsibilities you had.
Sure, I can. Working with the group of field agents was probably one of the most interesting experiences I've ever had. And I recall, it was doing corporate records research, for example, before those things were online. It was before people knew what online meant. but it was doing corporate records research, making sure that equipment that they needed in the field was done. And I did often get a chance to sort of tag along and do some things when we were doing search warrants and that kind of thing. And that was very, very interesting, because I actually started this whole path with the idea that I was going to come back to Prince George's County and be a police officer. Along the way, people kept giving me new opportunities and new chances to do different things. And that's what life is about, is sort of having an opportunity to walk a path and come to those forks in the road.
Right. And then, as we sort of take this trip down memory lane, to use a cliche, I understand that your mother also attended the college and graduated.
She did, and I think that she was one of the inspirations that I had were coming here. She graduated about in the late 70s, but she was a stellar student. I don't know if she was valedictorian, but she might have been number 2. It was back in the day when actually some of our neighbors would actually help her through the programming classes and come over and teach, help her get through the COBOL classes back when the computer labs, apparently you could only use them at midnight, so.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Well, I tell you what, we can go back in the records and find out if she was number 1. Having met you, I'm pretty sure that she was, and and she represented certainly a road for you to follow.
Yes.
But how did you balance, even in college, work and your academic life?
Well, I was fortunate enough to pick a place where that balance was really the front and center focus of it, because the idea of having a co-op program, which is actually a 4-year gig, not the 4 that you typically see in typical institutions, and the entire academic calendar was sort of cycled to accommodate that. So in most calendar years, I would work 6 months and then go to school 6 months. And the professors made a conscious decision to try to incorporate those things. And so the work-life balance in college was actually a lot easier than it might be in other places, but it also took me a little bit longer.
Well, that's interesting to know, because many of our students, as you know, work. We probably have about 80% of our students are working at least 20 hours a week.
Right.
And that we know, as they think about pursuing higher education,
right,
but also understanding that they need to work in order to support themselves or their families. What kind of advice would you give them as you think about motivating students to stay focused and to persevere?
Sure, and I think that the advice that I would give is really to do your absolute best to find a way to find work that complements the school, and make sure that you have classes that complement the work. And focus more, my view is just focus more on what it is you think you're really going to enjoy doing with the rest of your life, and everything else will probably fall into place somehow, And so I think that'd be the advice that I would give.
And well, you left Northeastern, you left Eleanor Roosevelt, you came to Prince George's Community College, you went to Northeastern, and then you arrived at Harvard University, Harvard Law School.
Yes, it was quite a surprise for me, I'll put it that way. And I have to say that one of the things about being involved in higher education, period, is that you do get exposure to these mentors. You do get exposure to people who will take you under their wing. And in my case, it was a professor I had who was originated from the Bahamas, but he was a lawyer in Boston, took me under his wing and said, "You need to think bigger." And that's what brought me to Harvard, really.
And how was that experience, that sort of Ivy League experience? And maybe before we get to that, that's the question that we'll end with, and when we come back to the show, we'll let you talk about your experience at Harvard.
Sure.
So thank you, and again, we're so happy to have you here with us, Adrian Gardner.
Thank you.
When life's this hard, it's no wonder 7,000 students drop out every school day. Visit boostup.org and help kids in your community stay in school.
Body language can tell you all sorts of things. Like someone is having a stroke. Know the sudden signs. Learn fast. Face drooping, arm weakness, speech difficulty. Time to call 911 and get them to a hospital immediately. Learn the body language and spot a stroke fast.
Traditional light bulbs actually generate 9 times more heat than light. Switch to Energy Star light bulbs, and you'll realize just how much cash you are really burning through. Saving energy saves you money. Learn more at EnergySavers.gov.
Prince George's Community College isn't just a place that offers more than 200 academic, workforce development, and continuing education programs. It's the first step toward the career of your dreams. It's a community of people who want you to succeed. It's where degrees are earned and potential is realized. Apply and register today. Call 301-336-6000. Prince George's Community College, transforming lives.
We're back with Adrian Gardner, General Counsel of the Maryland National Capital Park and Planning Commission. Again, welcome, Adrian. And as we left off, we were talking about Harvard and that sort of Ivy League experience. Talk to us about it.
Well, Harvard started for me by an invitation to apply to a joint degree program. And the good news about that was that I was able to work on a master's degree at the same time I was working on a law school degree. So I combined those studies, and ordinarily it's 2 years plus 3 years, and by sharing those classes, I was able to do both in 4. And so I actually started at the Kennedy School of Government, and I have to say that academically, it was the most difficult experience I've ever had. I call it academic boot camp, and that's because I really didn't have a whole lot of quantitative experience. But at the Kennedy School, that's one of the things that they preach, and I have to say, I think I'm a better lawyer now because of it, because I do understand how statistical models work and actually the finance side of things as well. I learned that there, and then sort of went on to the law school, and it was a very good experience. It was a growing experience. It wasn't that it was tough sometimes, but it was also a lot of fun, I think.
So when you talk about the quantitative experience, it's interesting that you talk about statistics, a math background,
absolutely,
finance,
absolutely.
So understanding the numbers, how you get there, the correlations between certain things, and I know that in many cases students struggle with
Sure.
mathematics and that sort of quantitative side of learning. So what advice would you give around that as you're talking either to students who are just entering even their high school years or college?
I would say 2 things. One is, don't give up, because when you get to the other side of that challenge, you will feel better at virtually anything you're trying to do professionally. And number 2, I say work with other students. One thing that Harvard does that I don't know that I saw very often anywhere else were study groups. And we're very, very serious about that. And it was almost taken for granted that that's what you were going to do. You were going to find some people who were in the same situation with you and share the boat. And one of the things that you can find with those kinds of relationships is that somebody can explain something to you that they understand in a way that maybe the professor can't even.
So it sort of clicks on that light bulb for you in terms of learning.
Right, and so you can share that experience. So that's probably what I would say, but it absolutely, in my mind's eye, it absolutely makes me a better lawyer that I do understand when I'm talking to a CPA what they're saying, about how they reach their conclusion.
And I think that that's great advice, because the other thing that we know is that as students, whether they're doing it as part of their academic experience in college or in the world of work, that working in teams and learning as a result of being in that team is so important and so critical. So it can start while you're in college as you think about study groups, because what are they? They are teams where you're each building on one another's knowledge. So I think that's a great point that you've made, and we certainly appreciate you making it here at Prince George's Community College. So we also know that, again, Harvard Law School, you worked in the corporate world for some time.
I did.
So talk about that.
I did. Well, you know, one of the things is that particularly after you walk out of law school and you have one portfolio you definitely have is loans. Unless your family had the wherewithal to take care of it. In my family, we get, you know, when we growing up in Ardmore. But the point is, I had plenty of loans, and there is a certain amount of pressure to try to find a mechanism that will help you reduce that, so you can actually go do some things that you really care about. And so I was fortunate enough. I worked at a very large law firm in Washington, D.C. for you know, hundreds of lawyers, and did very interesting things and learned quite a bit. Learned a lot about tax law, and also learned a fair amount about corporate work. And but the point is, after that, I was able to come back. I found my way to come back and work in the county, and so that's why it was important. It was a stepping stone as well.
Well, one thing that we do know is that because you started at Prince George's, that while you had loans, that you certainly were able to look at loans in such a way that you spent 2 years at a community college where the education was one of quality, but it also was one where you could afford to be here. And then as you thought about borrowing money, you could do that for your the remainder of your 4-year experience, and then for law school or graduate school.
That's an excellent point, because there's no doubt that, and as I said, I'll go back to the point, every single credit that I took transferred. So I did not have to redo a single thing, and it made all the difference in the world when I started my undergraduate program. And frankly, you know, one of the blessings that I've had is that I really didn't have much debt coming out of college. It's mostly from graduate school and law school. And that's you know, but in any event, that's what led me to the corporate world. And I spent a few years there, and then came to work actually for the Prince George's County government, doing minority business development.
And that's what I understand, that you may have been one of the youngest persons ever hired to run that agency.
It's true. I was 28 years old and sitting on the county executive's cabinet. And I had the confidence of the county executive at that point, Paris Glendenning, and enjoyed working with him and his team. Some of the great people, Major Riddick and some of the other folks from around the county who were around and part of that administration, making a difference. And so,
you know, the other thing I think is difference, given your history, a native Prince Georgian, moving away for college and coming back, working under the county executive, it's also would be interesting to understand your perspective of how you see places where you've seen the county has grown and has accomplished a lot. So can you talk about that a little bit, especially in your role with the Park and Planning Commission?
Yes, certainly. And I think that, you know, when I look at somebody like County Executive Baker and what County Executive Curry did for Prince George's County, and I think at how complicated things have gotten, the fact that the bond rating for the county has gotten better, the fact that even though we have an unprecedented cap actually on the way that we can, you know, sort of finance our government, no other county has anything, you know, close to what Prince George's County does in terms of the cap on its taxes. I'm not arguing for a tax increase. I'm just saying we've sort of hamstrung ourselves a little bit. And so in any event, managing within that environment is really, really tough. And I just think that they've done such a great job, and you know, by improving the bond rating. And so if you ask me about growth, I mean, I think one of the ways that we've grown, obviously the community has gotten, it has changed, changed over time. But the challenges have not let up. And I think the level of sophistication and the level of competence that we see in our local government is you know, as good or better than anywhere else I've ever seen in the state. So I think we should feel good about that. I think we should feel really good about that.
Well, I understand, and we're going to shift gears for just a slight moment, because you served as an adjunct professor. So what we'll do is that just give us a few tidbits about what was important at teaching at Georgetown Law Center.
Well, what was important about it was it convinced me that that's something that I definitely want to do in the future. I loved teaching. I loved having the diversity of students at Georgetown University Law Center, and I taught a class that was in local government, and that's what I've been doing for the past almost 15 years now. And one of my favorite students was actually a heart surgeon that decided that he wanted a new career and went to law school. So just that diversity.
Right. Well, you know what we'll do? We'll continue that story when we come back, and we'll learn more about your work at the Planning Commission.
Sure.
Seven 7,000 high school students drop out every school day. Let's catch them before it's too late. To start helping students in your community, visit boostup.org.
Prince George's Community College isn't just a place that offers more than 200 academic, workforce development, and continuing education programs. It's the first step toward the career of your dreams. It's a community of people who want you to succeed. It's where degrees are earned and potential is realized. Apply and register today. Call 301-336-6000. Prince George's Community College, transforming lives.
We're back with Adrian Gardner, General Counsel of the Maryland National Capital Park and Planning Commission, who got his start right here at Prince George's Community College. And before the break, you were talking about your adjunct professor experience with a heart surgeon. So why don't we continue there?
Yeah, I'll finish it. Dr. Malloy from Richmond, Virginia, had been practicing cardiology and heart surgery in that area for years and years. His daughter actually went to law school, and he found that he was enjoying what she was talking about, and he decided to enroll, and he was absolutely one of my favorite students ever. African-American doctor from Richmond was commuting back and forth from Richmond to come to law school at Georgetown, and just a fabulous, fabulous man.
That's interesting to know, because the other thing we almost have no idea about are the lives of the people that we impact based upon our engagement, whether it's being an adjunct professor, it's being a student, or an English professor, as you mentioned earlier here at the college. Your mentor, as you talked about, being admonished to think bigger, and ended up at Harvard Law School. So you've been with the Park and Planning Commission since, I think, about 2000?
Right.
So talk to us about your experiences there. What is it that you do? What are your responsibilities?
I would say that I have sort of three major responsibilities. The first one is to try to keep us out of court. And we try to do that a couple of different ways. One really important way is to make sure that I have 15 other lawyers that I'm lucky to work with, and the number one job that they have is to be accessible so that people can make good decisions with legal advice as we go along doing the business of the people. The second thing is, since the commission was created, a big part of our work program involves trying to represent the commission in front of the General Assembly. So I and a couple of other folks spend a fair amount of time traveling down Route 50 during this time of year to try to make sure that we are educators in a different realm. And the third major issue is we do have a pretty healthy portfolio of litigation. Some of it is not seeking damages, some of it is seeking damages, but the point of it is that we roughly have 40 or so cases that are active at any given time in the federal, state, appellate, trial courts all over.
And so we know that your role as certainly General Counsel is to ensure that legally the commission stands on good ground. So talk to our listeners about what is the commission, what is the role of the Maryland National Capital Park and Planning Commission?
Awesome question. The Park and Planning Commission was chartered in 1927 at a time when both Prince George's and Montgomery County were changing dramatically. The development that was sort of bubbling out of the District of Columbia was impacting neighborhoods like Silver Spring, Edmonston here, Bladensburg, et cetera. And so the idea was basically, let's get our hands around this growth. Let's get in front of it, and let's make sure that we're not just doing, that we're not doing just planning and just developing without paying attention to the park system. Prince George's County, Montgomery County together have the only 5-time gold medal award winner in park and recreations in the country. And that's because we started in 1927 making that a priority, that growth would only come without the expense to parks. And so that our park system is what it is. So the main thing that we do is try to help make sure that both counties develop with a good infrastructure of parks.
That's great to know. So what would you think? It sounds like that's really one of the most rewarding aspects of the work that you do, ensuring that we have those green spaces, parks, and being a 5-time gold medal award winner says that we're clearly doing something right.
Yes, I would say it's one of the most rewarding things, and what it's really fortunate being a lawyer, because a lot of times you represent people, not a lot of times, but sometimes you as a lawyer, your professional responsibility is to represent people who may not be passionate about something that is healthy, may not be passionate about something that is good for others. That has probably been the most rewarding thing. The people who care about planning Prince George's County and the people who care about building a solid park system in Prince George's County are pretty passionate, and it's really gratifying to be the lawyer for those folks.
And I understand that we do have Plan Prince George's 2035. So you want to talk to us for a few moments about what that is all about?
Sure, absolutely, and it's really important because every jurisdiction in Maryland is essentially required to have a plan, a general plan. It's called a general plan in Prince George's County. Other areas of Maryland call it the comprehensive plan. But the idea is really to set the 30,000-foot level sort of goals for how the county is going to develop in the future. If you are turning around and saying, oh, we've gone too far, you will realize that what you did yesterday could actually make a difference. And so that's the idea of a comprehensive plan. And the idea is really twofold. Let's focus new growth on the areas that already have infrastructure, where metro is available, where sewer and water is available. That will also help us make sure that we preserve the agricultural space that's been a part of our community, that's a big part of our community. And the third component is in the in the medium space, the developing areas, let's make sure that we don't create new public costs. Let's pay attention to how much it's going to cost the public to actually have different kinds of development.
So as you, we've talked a lot about things like, I remember when I moved to Maryland and someone asked me, had I been downtown? And I said, well, I've been to Bowie, and what I didn't realize is that they meant downtown was sort of in the District of Columbia.
Right.
And as people talk about a downtown Prince George's, is that something important to think about, or do we continue to think about this bigger vision that Plan 2035 gives us?
Well, part of Plan 2035 is in fact to focus on certain areas. So, for example, you look at the Arts District. That's along Route 1 that goes from Mount Rainier up to the Hyattsville line or so. And, the idea is that is becoming a downtown. So Prince George's County, and part of the development plan for the future, is to create a handful of downtowns, focus on those downtowns, and make sure that people do have different downtowns, but that they all make good sense for the future.
That's really great. So here, on that note, what we'll do is really thank Adrian Gardner. You truly are a Prince George's Community College success story. You're truly a success story for Prince George's County. We're very proud of the work that you're doing for the commission. So I'm Charlene Dukes. Thanks for joining us for this edition of Conversations.